Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Connecting the World show, and I'm your host, Monim Rizvi. Today, we have a guest, Mr. Steven, and he's from USA, New Jersey. Who is Mr. Steven? We'll ask him about himself. But before inviting him to my show, I am going to introduce himself in a very brief introduction. Mr. Steven is a peacemaker, and he is making a peace dialogue between Israeli and Palestine. Without any wasting of my time, I'm going to invite Mr. Steven. Hello, Mr. Steven. How are you?
Assalamu alaikum. I'm great, thank you.
Walaikum salam, and thank you so much that you take your precious time and came to my show.
It's a pleasure to be here with you. Thanks to the internet and for all of your watchers.
Okay, Mr. Steven, I would love to know more about you. Who are you? Where are you from? And what you exactly do in your life?
So I'm Jewish, Italian American. I grew up in Brooklyn, New York, um, and I've lived in Israel now for 10 years. I'm based in Tel Aviv. I studied economics, diplomacy, and conflict studies, and I also did a master's in Islamic studies. And I've studied Judaic studies, so I'm interested in both Judaism and Islam. And what I've done for the last 8 years really is to be involved with connecting youth ages 14 to 18, like we call junior high school and high school, through debates, Model United Nations, simulations, negotiation, different conferences, and bringing together groups of youth from different communities to meet each other and to discuss all kinds of issues that are important to them.
That's great. It's a wonderful introduction you gave us. Kindly now tell us about your education. From where did you did your education? From which university? And in which subject exactly you did your education?
So I studied economics at New York University in Manhattan. And then after that, I studied master's in diplomacy and conflict studies from an international school in Israel called Interdisciplinary Center Herzliya, IDC Herzliya. And then most recently, I went back and I did a master's in Islamic studies at Tel Aviv University.
Oh, that's great. So you studied in Islamic studies also.
Yeah, from the academic university context, and I also study on my own both Jewish and Islamic texts, more from the religious side.
Okay, now as you told that you also studied your religion, Judaism, and then you also studied the Islamic studies. So why did you study both of these religion as a subject? What was the main reason why you studied this?
Well, I consider myself religious and observant, so I started first with my own religion to study. It's pretty common for religious families. So I studied actually from a young age. It was always part of our curriculum. But then after high school, I spent 18 months just studying different aspects of Jewish religion texts, learning how to read in different languages, Hebrew and Aramaic. And then actually, once I got to Israel, because we have almost 20% of the population is Muslim, so I became much more interested in Islam. I didn't know anything about it. And then I started learning just little bits, people invited me for iftar and things like that. And it got me very interested. The more I learned, the more interested I got. And that's when I decided to go back to school to do the second master's. I'm still studying. Studying is a never-ending journey. So even though I finished school, I still I read the Torah every day, and I read Quran and Hadith, actually Bukhari every day, always adding to my knowledge.
Oh, that's great. Okay, now as you told that 20% of population in Israel is Muslim, so are they open for their to practice their religion?
Yeah. It's almost all Sunni. We have pretty much no Shia in Israel, and not so many other groups. But people are very open about being Muslim. It's quite a free country in that regard. Women wear hijab if they want. People fast. We celebrate holidays. I think the religion in Israel Palestine, it's pretty moderate, so it's not too extreme, but also people are not really secular. Almost everyone observes to some extent. I think most people fast during Ramadan, but even if they don't, they will still attend iftar with someone who does. So I would say religion is pretty important to people.
They are allowed. They are freely allowed to do whatever they want according to their religion.
Oh yes, of course. It's religious freedom is
Because
by
I know,
law, and if
because I know some of my friends who are Jewish, and yes, they have some mustaches and stuff. They have beard exactly how Muslim have. So I think the people who are Muslim in Israel, they don't have any problem regarding the beard or females who want to do hijab or they want to cover their face.
yeah, if someone wants to wear hijab, she can wear hijab. If she doesn't want to, she doesn't have to. You have families, where the mom wears the hijab and the daughter doesn't, and it's a personal choice. Of course, it's influenced by the family and the community, but it's by law they cannot discriminate against you based on religion or anything like that.
Okay. As you are a peacemaker and you are making a dialogue between the Jewish and the Palestine, Israeli and the Palestine people, so how you are doing that peacemaking into a real, like what kind of problems you face when you decided for the first time in 2012?
So we face many challenges. The first one is that we are simply apart. So physically, even though we live in the same country, I said 20%. We live in different communities. Actually, usually it's different cities. So usually you have to drive from one city to another to connect between Jews and Christians or Muslims. So we're living in different places by choice. Uh, Linguistically, the Jews usually speak Hebrew. The Muslims and Christians both usually speak Arabic. So they're
All
speaking
right.
different languages. They are similar, but they're different languages. So we can all speak in Hebrew if we want, or for me, we do meetings in English usually, just because it's the common language. And of course, we have faced lots of prejudice, stereotypes, fear, lack of understanding. So those issues go away as soon as people meet, especially with kids, youth. They meet each other, they realize we all have homework, we all have dealing with teenage issues. We're all kind of the same, but as initially, these are the challenges we face.
I got it. I got it. What you want to say exactly. Okay, and how you are engaging people of Palestine, how you are doing to connect with them, because I know some of them, they say if we came on Facebook and do talk about Palestine, Facebook just block our Facebook ID or Twitter ID or Instagram ID. Why this happening with Palestine people? What do you think? As you are a peacemaker, I'm not going to make this controversial. I'm just want to know the fact, as you are from Israel and you can give the real aspect, because I have listened the one side story. I want to listen the second side story too.
Yeah, thank you. So there's different issues. First of all, we must distinguish that as I said, there's 20% of the population in Israel is about 20% is Palestinian. Almost all of them are Muslims, small Christian population. These are within Israel. So meaning me and them, we have the same passport, we have the same citizenship, with different religions and different ethnicities. Um, then we have Palestinians living in the West Bank in Gaza or Palestine. So these populations have different citizenship and different identity cards, and they speak the same language and have the same ethnicity as Palestinians in Israel, but they live in different cities and communities. So within Israel, it's a bit easier. As I said, we're dealing with different cities, so first of all, we have to meet, but we're facing stereotypes, but it's a lot freer. So for me, the goal is just to get the kids together. And what I found is that once you create a safe space and environment for them to come and meet, the kids are very respectful of each other. They have very different perspectives on politics, on religion, etc. But they really want to hear from each other. They want to learn from each other, and it goes very well. Um, and there's really no limitations to this aside from physically having to bring everyone together. When we're talking about for the West Bank and Gaza, so it's a bit different. Um, Usually, the Jewish citizens will not go to the West Bank. They're usually afraid to. And so we usually we invite the Palestinians from the West Bank to come to Israel, and we just need to request a permit. It takes about 2 weeks to get a permit. Of course, now with COVID, we're doing the same. We're doing it all online. It doesn't really matter where you are. But if it would be normally, what we would do is we would take students, we would send their information in advance. We would get about a week later, we get a permit, and then they can come join us in an activity. But each time you have to request a permit, so it's a lot harder. And we are hoping for a day when travel back and forth will be just showing your ID and that's it, because we are neighbors and we need peace. Um, in addition, we don't always we don't take photos or share photos of people who come from the West Bank or Gaza, because it may be that for their sake they want to protect their identity, because depending on where they live in their community, it may not be so acceptable to be hanging out with Jewish Israelis. This is not always the case. Many of them are happy to share photos on Instagram, etc. But for their sake, I'm more careful. Gaza is, of course, the most complicated. To leave Gaza, it's unfortunately very complicated. Basically, to leave Gaza, you need permission of the Israeli government, the Hamas government, and the Palestinian Authority, the Palestinian government in Ramallah. And these three do not agree on very much. So unfortunately, these permits are much rarer than they should be. We have had people visit us from Gaza, and it's of course very special when they do. Aside from that, we use the internet, as we said. But this is rare and the most complicated. And when they do join us, we're careful about photos again, because if you go back to Gaza afterwards, unfortunately, the government there can put you in jail and things like that. But for me, any limitation on people meeting on the people to people level, this is preventing peace.
Okay. You are doing this from last 8 or 9 years, from 2011 till 2020, and you're still working on this cause. And this is a cause, it's very beautiful cause. You're working as you want to make a peace among the different kind of religion, different kind of countries that are living as, and you are also making like dialogue, a talk between the Arabic countries and the Jewish countries. And you did a lot of conferences. Kindly tell us about your experience regarding the conferences. You have done more than 20 conferences.
Yeah, they're amazing. So we can talk about any issue. Sometimes we talk about other conflicts, the war in Yemen, the war in Syria, the war in Libya. We talk about refugees and migrants. Um, we talked about women's empowerment. We talked about religions, Judaism and Islam. But we also talk about our conflict. We talked about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. We talked about how education can play a positive role in this. So we let students give their insights into how education can bring people together. Um, we let them pretend to be countries in the UN, and we even let them pretend to be members of our parliament here in Israel and make decisions. And we see the difference between when they sit and make decisions where they really want to solve problems, and when the government sits and they're really just trying to check the boxes and they're not really trying to solve problems. So we're letting the kids be decision makers, so they have the conversations, so they meet, but also so that inshallah in a few years we'll have a different kind of leadership, a different kind of decision makers, people who know how to sit with those who are different from them, have different perspectives, and listen to them and find common ground. People who know how to solve problems, and people who want to solve the problems. People who really want to take us to a better place. I very much believe in the youth. As you said, I've been doing it for 8-9 years. I've seen amazing things. Jewish and Muslim, Jewish and Palestinian kids who stay in each other's homes, visit each other, wish each other holiday greetings. They can sit and talk about Jerusalem, refugees, the most controversial topics. They argue, they have very different opinions, and they're still friends afterwards. They go out for coffee afterwards or for lunch. So I've seen beautiful things. For me, every Jewish holiday, I get greetings from my Muslim friends. I've been invited to them for iftar, for Eid. So it's really, it inspires me to work with these amazing people.
That's great. So, like you are having a good new family through these kind of conferences. Okay, now we'll talk about regarding these conferences. You have also made 10 delegations abroad. So, what was that? How you made it, and who was your like a partner in these delegations? Which countries are were there in these delegations?
Yeah, the delegations are very important. So we've been to Romania, Belgium, the European Parliament in Brussels. We've been to Sweden, the UK a couple of times, Kosovo, Cyprus, Albania, the United States many times. I hope I've not forgotten a country, but probably. And the purpose of these delegations, first of all, we go to compete. We form a model United Nations delegation. We pick a conference. We take Jewish, Muslim, Christian, Druze students, and they prepare together, and they prepare to to be competitive. So that's first of all, we go to the conference and we're competitive. We win awards. Second of all, just the fact that they leave the country together. This is never done in almost any other context, so it's very, very special. Spending 5 days a week together, it's a very different experience. We realize that outside we're a lot more similar than we realize, because here, the differences feel so big, but then you leave and people look at you and they can't tell who's Israeli, who's Palestinian, who's Jewish, who's Muslim. They can't tell the difference between us. So we realize that we have a lot in common. When we're traveling, we're visiting synagogues, mosques, churches, um, meeting different communities. We visited the United Nations, all different UN missions, different embassies and foreign ministries. And we went to the Netherlands as well, right? So the Dutch Foreign Ministry, the European Parliament, the Swedish Foreign Ministry, and then different missions to the UN, the EU, the American mission to the UN, the mission of Cyprus to the UN, etc. So we do these, and we meet with professors, different academics, so that the students can learn, because these are going to be the leaders. As I said, these are going to be the leaders in 5, 10, 20 years. So giving them just kind of the skills and the experience that they will need.
That's great. Okay. Now, we'll talk about like you have honorary advisor as an NGO committee on sustainable development, SDG. So let's talk about that too.
Yeah, the NGO Committee on Sustainable Development. So it's an NGO at the UN, in ECOSOC. Um, so it's an NGO that's active, organizing on the civil society level, so representing the people, organizing events with the UN. And I was able to join last year. We held one of what's called UN 75, so the 75th anniversary of the UN's formation foundation. So we participated in one of the first UN 75 events in New York. My students and I, we sat on a panel in New York to speak about the kind of issues we expect to face in the future. And after that, I was invited to join as an honorary advisor. Right now, again, they're very involved in UN 75 activities. So all kinds of topics, of course, via Zoom webinars, but discussing how far the world has come and where we have left to go. But the goal is to strengthen the connection between the civil society in New York, but in the whole world, and the United Nations and the member states who are hopefully trying together to build a better world. So we're hoping to connect that to energize people at home and all different backgrounds to be involved, take a more active role in shaping the future of our world.
Okay. Okay. I was reading your introduction that you have spoken to different kind of at like parliament, like Swedish, Dutch parliament, and then US and foreign minister. And how you get there? Why did they invite you there to come and speak?
I don't know. I guess because a Jew who, unfortunately, a Jew who studies Islam and holds Jewish Muslim study sessions and meets with Israelis and Palestinians together. Sadly, it's unusual. It's not a common thing. So as much as I've had amazing personal experiences and learned so much from it, um, also other people want to hear from it, and that's where I've been invited. The Swedish Foreign Ministry were the first ones to invite me to their conference in Sweden. Then I had the opportunity to speak at the European Parliament in Brussels as again as an Israeli Palestinian peacemaker, and this led to some wonderful connections. And then most recently at the UN, because we've been visiting New York and New York and the United Nations for a few years, so now we're building up the connections there. And I should say that the American Embassy, really, in the U.S. State Department, they're one of our biggest supporters. So we are very active with them. So I would say the American embassy as well. They're very involved in promoting peace efforts and intercultural bridges as well.
Okay. One more question. How did your family supported you? Like when you tell your family that you are going to be a dialogue between the Muslims and the Jewish people, did they support it? Or when you tell about that you are going to be a bridge between the Arabic and the Jewish, so Israelis, so what was their reaction? I want to know.
It's very interesting. I have many debates with with my parents, especially my dad. Um, they're more on the right wing side of politics, and they don't always. We don't necessarily agree on politics, and they don't always believe everything that I believe. So we have much to argue about, but they are extremely supportive. I can say that my father was the one really who first got me into this because when I was only 12 years old, no, 14 years old, excuse me, 13, 14, and I was living in New York. We had, of course, 9/11, as you know. This is when I was in eighth grade living in Brooklyn. And just a few days later, there was an attack in my Jewish school where some Pakistani American boys threw rocks into the schoolyard. And my father's response to this was, we're going to start a Jewish Muslim basketball league. So we went to Kopo, which is the local Pakistani youth organization. And together with them, we started a Jewish Muslim basketball league. So we started playing basketball. And this was my dad's response. So it was from him that I learned that the solution, when you have conflict, the solution is always to go and talk and to find common ground, whether it's basketball, whether it's debate. So they're very supportive. Of course, not everyone is. I have other people who I talk to who are very discouraging. I have neighbors who I've had arguments about. They're not very happy with what I do, but it's important work, so we won't give up.
That's great, and yes, I love how you started. Now, at the end, I would want to know that how you are empowering the youth by doing this.
So the first thing is really just to give them the forum. As I said, unfortunately, we have incredible youth, and they are really not giving this opportunity. So meaning, as I said, Jewish youth in Israel, they go to school in Hebrew. They don't meet non-Jewish kids. And the Arab youth who are Muslim and Christian, they usually go to schools. Sometimes they even go to Muslim or Christian schools separately. And again, they don't meet Jewish youth. So they're basically segregated. So the first thing I do is literally just give them the chance to meet. The second thing is I tell them my organization is not political. It has no political stance. You can speak whatever you want because you represent yourself. Speak freely. The only condition is you have to respect the other person sitting there. So we give them the space to express themselves. And I hear from many students, you're giving us a space, even in our school, when we're surrounded by people who agree with us, we're not allowed to talk about these issues in politics and religion. It's only here in Debate for Peace that we get to actually express ourselves. So this is the main thing, is just giving them the platform. And the last thing is that I trust them. I put my faith in them. So I give them the chance to speak in different international forums, to speak at the UN, to speak in front of all kinds of guests from abroad, because I really believe in them that that they are the power, they're the future, and that they will find a way to make peace. So it's by giving them the space and by trusting with them, I think I'm empowering them.
Okay. In the end, I would love to ask you that kindly is in the end give us some positive message for the youth and for our audience.
Yeah, so I think first of all, with the internet, maybe we don't realize, but we have incredible power to, as we've done here, to reach out and connect with people in all different communities, cultures, countries. Um, you don't need to be a president or prime minister to make peace or make important decisions. You have the power at your fingertips to reach out and learn from someone and and teach them as well. And it as my father told me initially, it takes courage sometimes to make peace. So it could be, it's a little bit scary to meet someone who's different. It could be, it takes a little bit to overcome your shyness and reach out to a stranger. But I can guarantee you, you get so much out of it. So really, just go out there and do it.
Thank you so much for your wonderful time. You gave to us. It was such a wonderful to meet you and talk about the peace and you what you are doing. You are doing a one fantastic job. Keep it up. Take care. And now we have to end our session here. Thank you, Mr. Steven. You gave your precious time. Take care. Bye bye.
Thank you, Liwa.